Yeah, so I'm trellising my dahlias today, and it is June 17th. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay. So come hang out with me. I'll show you how I trellis my dahlias and my peppers. Cool? Cool. Yeah. Hi friends, and welcome back to the Lloydstead. As I said in my intro, today I am trellising my dahlias and my peppers. And yes, it is mid-June. So fellow garden procrastinators, come hang out with me. I actually started this process weeks ago. I planted my dahlias out. It's been probably 4 weeks, and that's okay. I actually debated whether or not this would be a valid video to share because I'm like, well, everyone's trellised their dahlias by now, but obviously I haven't. So maybe you haven't either, and it's okay because it's okay. My dahlias, I trellised some of them, and I'm going to show you what they look like here shortly. I trellised some of them shortly after I planted them, and they're fine. I had a doozy of a hailstorm last night at the Lloydstead, and the ones that weren't trellised are still okay. They're still okay. I do need to do it though. So I'm gonna do that now. And okay, I use the word trellis, and let's just say support, because I don't have actually a trellis that they grow up. I am gonna try and keep this kind of brief though. Famous last words, Rebecca. Our air quality is pretty horrible today. Not as terrible as it was last week with the wildfires up in Canada. Sorry, Canada. I'm not going to take on work that's too strenuous today. Kind of take it easy. So I'm going to share with you some of the footage of me planting out the dahlias and talking about them a little bit. If you are interested in me potting them up many weeks ago, and talking about how I store them and then how I pot them up and put them in my greenhouse to grow on for a little while protected. That video is, hey, I can link it. I can do that. I can figure out how to do that because I'm a YouTuber. Yeah, I am. I can do that. I will do that. Editing Becky, do that. So I'm gonna get you guys all caught up, and then I'll meet you back here where I'm gonna start trellising. Supporting's the word I want to use. Cool. Hey guys, look. Dahlias! Yay! Hey guys, look. A big shovel. Yay! My little transplanter is not going to do the job for the dahlias. I don't know how many of you would have watched some previous videos, but in a video, I potted these guys up. And as I explained in that video, but I don't want to assume you've watched it. I pot them up for a couple reasons. I want to get them started, maybe even while there's still a chance of frost out here. I start them in the greenhouse so that I can get blooms as early as possible. I could have started them even earlier, actually. So that's thing one. Want to get them a little earlier. But I also am relatively new to dahlias, so I want to make sure that I've got viable tubers and that I stored them correctly. Oh, y'all, David brought home lunch. He's the best. So I might bail on you guys. What time is it? Is it lunchtime? Oh my gosh, is it lunchtime already? Oh, 11:30. I'll finish this job and then I'll go in for lunch. I'm stoked because of the, how many tubers did I start? I'm gonna put 12 in here. I've got 4 in there, 16. Long story short, I started over 20 tubers. I only have 1 that didn't do anything. I thought I had 2, and that was this little guy. And then I went in there a couple days ago and look, greenness. So I'm actually gonna leave him in the pot and let him grow on a little more, and I'm gonna put him in the main garden because I have enough to fill this bed. The way I'm going to plant these is, notice how my hoop structures kind of provide 3 little bays, shall we say. I'm going to put 4 in a bay. I'm going to give them lots and lots of room. I will zigzag string all around these hoop structures in order to create a nice web in which to hold these dahlias. Last year, I did not stake my dahlias very well. It was sadness and tragedy. They were all over the place. Bless their hearts. It was sad. And I would have gotten far more flowers if they had been better supported. But we learn. That's the whole thing, right? And that's why I want to encourage you guys, anybody who's planning out some dahlias, know, and I know everyone says this, but it's true, know that they do need support. If you want the best dahlia harvest you can get, but also it's going to be a little bit of trial and error to get the kind of support that your particular garden and your particular varieties need. And that's okay. Gardening is a forgiving sport. It's one of the reasons why I love it. You can keep on messing up and then you get like a whole new season to do it again. Oh, you couldn't see what I was doing. Let's turn you down a little bit. You might be a little crooked. Editing Becky can fix it. Editing Becky fixes everything. She's awesome. I am not a dinner plate dahlia grower. I don't need the biggest, most gigantic blooms because I make market bouquets and arrangements. And frankly, dinner plate dahlias are really hard to use in arrangements and bouquets. Oh, I'm going to interrupt my yammering on about varieties and tell you guys that this is one of the beds that we amended recently with well-rotted manure, with mushroom compost that we get by the truckload from a local supplier around here. Dave takes the truck, backs in, they load it up, and he brings it home. And it is much, much, much cheaper than any other soil amendment that we have. So and I might have mentioned that, we every year for most of the beds, we try and add just a couple inches of that mushroom compost to our planting spaces. All right, we've got those in. Okay, that's done. My camera died, which is fine. You got the gist. I stuck plants in the ground. That's great. So what I'm going to do now really quickly before we move on to peppers, I'm going to seed some lovely little things in some of these spaces. I know that I'm not going to get a ton of blooms off these guys anytime real soon because dahlias are very much the glories of late summer into autumn, and that's okay. But I've got some fast blooming things to pop up in some of these empty spots. So I've got some hybrid pollenless sunflowers, and I get hybrid pollenless when I want to use them for cutting. It is no fun to have sunflowers dropping pollen on your kitchen table. So I like to cut pollenless varieties. But I'm going to plant the last of this variety. I've been succession planting quite a few of these. This is Vincent's Choice from Johnny's. I've not grown this before, but I only have about 12 seeds left. So I figured I'd spread these out on this side, and then I've got buckwheat. I've never grown buckwheat. But I've seen it in some beautiful arrangements, and I'm going to spread that out on the other side. So speed through this little number. All right, that job's done. So exciting, right? I'm going to clean that up, go get peppers, and then that'll be a fast job. We're going to go plant a row of hot peppers. Actually, not just hot. I've got bells too. Let's do this. Can I just be completely honest with you guys and say I kind of use you as motivation to get stuff done? Like, oh yeah, the people want to see me plant peppers, so I've got to plant peppers today. Yeah, so thank you for that. This row, this is actually the last Oh no, it's not quite the last empty bed. I was about to say this is the last empty bed in my garden, but bed number 2 is empty. He's got, actually more peppers are going to be going in there in a little while when they get a little bigger. Look, I've got to pick some of these weeds while I'm talking to you. Y'all, this time of year is my favorite because I am completely optimistic that I'm going to keep up with the weeds. This is the year. It's going to be amazing. Peppers, we're doing peppers. Focus. Stay focused. Okay, I'm going to do my peppers in a long line on the west side of this bed. These beds all roughly run north-south, roughly. And so peppers like it hot. There's lots of trees over there on the east side. So I want to put them here on the west side. So no matter what I decide to do on that side, and I can't remember, I'm not looking at my plan, these guys will get the afternoon blazing hot sun and will be in a lot of sun for a lot of the time. These beds get the most sun out of any of the beds in the garden. So they should like that. That should be groovy. And I'm going to plant them in a long line, and I'm going to try something new this year. So I can't tell you that I know for sure that it works well, but I'm going to plant them in a line and do something called a Florida weave. So let me talk about that while I'm sticking them in the ground. A Florida weave, what that is going to entail is I'm going to put wooden stakes all in between each of these pepper plants, and then I'll just run twine and weave it around the plants and around those wooden stakes in order to hold them up. I've tried a couple different things with my pepper plants. I've tried tomato cages, and that doesn't work a treat. I've tried just these little green trellising stick things, and that doesn't work a treat. So I'm going to stick these in the ground, and then I'll go get my wooden stakes. Pepper plants don't grow terribly high, so I think that'll be a good use of those stakes because they only stick up about 3 feet out of the ground. And we're going to try it. We're going to try. It's going to be grand. All right, those are in. I think that's a pretty good spacing. Sorry, little guys. Y'all can't see what just happened, but I'll give you a terrible play-by-play. I just put those little pepper plants in this bin, and I set it up on the corner of the bed, and they just fell. Oh, terrible, terrible thing. Really quickly, gonna dig up some weeds. I love this garden. Oh, God. Hello, sunflowers. Sorry to dig around you. All right, there they are. Hey, look, it's a David. I like him. So I put 5 stakes, 1 every other pepper. Yeah, and then we'll come along as they grow and just wrap twine around and then weave it in between the stakes and the peppers in order to hold them up. So yeah, so that job's done. First of all, these hoops, I know I didn't talk about these necessarily. These hoops David and I installed a few years ago, and they are on 3 of my 10 raised beds in this garden, and they are just permanently installed. They're screwed into the sides with U-clamps, and they just stay here all the time. And they're lovely for throwing row cover over to be able to extend my season. So far, I actually haven't quite gotten the knack of using these to their best advantage. These stay on year round, and last year I experimented with this kind of support for my dahlias, this woven netting idea, but its point of failure was the wooden stakes that I used because they were in another bed. The wooden stakes that I used fell. They caved in under the weight of how massive these plants will get. And so I still had dahlias sprawling all over the place. Still got a fairly bountiful harvest, but it was a mess and they were broken. And to see these beautiful flowers just smashed on the ground was heartbreaking. Kitty break. Do y'all see this? Like, how delicious. I can't even see him on my screen. Hopefully you can see him. Look, he found a shady spot, and it's like nice cool grass, I'm sure. Hi, Lazy Beans. How are you doing, Sir Mallow? Sorry. Any chance to get a critter break. Okay, so we're gonna try this, having twined this cotton string around these hoops, because these hoops are not going anywhere. They're not gonna fall, and hopefully this will provide more structure. I talked cavalierly about how we had a hailstorm and most of my dahlias were fine, and that's true, but you'll see there's a couple here that could have used the support, and so they're not as happy. But hopefully now that they have something to lean against, they will be better. They are also, the irrigation did not turn on this morning. I have the irrigation going every other day. Today was not its day, but it did rain so much last night. But these guys are just, dahlias are need a good amount of water. So they're wilting a little bit in the heat, but I do have a flower. Very exciting. Okay, last little bit to mention about this system. Actually, 2 bits to mention, 2 bits. Bit 1, in case I didn't say it earlier, I do use 100% cotton string to do this because I like to be able to just cut off the whole thing and throw everything in the compost, just like with my tomatoes, and just like I will do with my peppers, which you'll see here shortly. So that's my jam. It was not the string that broke last year. I've not had a lot of cotton string break with my tomatoes, so I feel confident in its strength, but we'll see. Famous last words. And the other thing to mention, I will continue to sort of weave some strands through here, right? So I totally envision putting another string across the top here, and maybe even crossing these guys a little bit. But at the moment, I think they've got enough support here and there. We're gonna see. There are a couple little bits that have fallen. So yes, friends, it would have been advantageous for me to have done this a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. But it isn't too late. I might have a couple stems that are a little wonky, but it's okay. It's okay. Let me show you. I'm just gonna walk with you. Let's walk. Let's talk. Walk with me through my garden, friends. Oh, sunshine went behind a little cloud. That's perfect. This is the dahlia bed that I did trellis, or that I did put the supports on much sooner after I planted them. And these I planted out a good week and a half before that far bed. There are only 4 dahlias here. And that's insane, right? Even when I say it, look, that is just 4 plants. I do need to string a higher string system because these guys are getting quite tall, and that guy in the middle has gotten quite tall. In fact, I'm going to do that now. After I more string onto this support system, I will meet you at the peppers. So, okay, hi. So that job is done for the time being. I'll let you guys know, good, bad, and ugly, how that works out. Peppers, I'm also trying something new because your girl's crazy. I also planted the peppers about 3 weeks ago. Whenever I planted the dahlias and the tomatoes, that was 1 day of planting. I have my peppers in 2 beds. One, there's a group of 8 peppers here, stretched out in a line, and there's another group of 8 peppers over there. We have had very unseasonably cool nights. I'm talking 50s, and it's still mid-June, and that's weird for my Zone 6B garden. We have also had precious little rain, like record little rain. And I do have irrigation in on my beds. I also have a video on my irrigation system if you want to check that out. And that's been keeping things alive. But I can't say that things are thriving yet in my garden. And that's kind of okay with me. I've got a long enough season. They'll get there. But the pepper plants, especially these cool nights, they are not excited about it. So they are still relatively small. But it's okay because here I am just now trellising these. And these guys, I'm actually going to try something called a Florida weave. And I think they're tall enough now that I can start this process. The main gist is that I've got these stakes that are pounded in pretty deep between every pair of peppers. And I am simply going to take my cotton twine and loop it around the stakes, kind of sandwich the pepper plants in between them. And as I add more, I will add twine on either side, kind of in and out, weaving, hence the name, and that will support them and keep them from falling over. In my experience, pepper plants don't need a ton of support. They are not like tomatoes. They will not vine up super tall. However, they do need some. They will flop, especially when they get laden with fruit. That fruit will snap limbs and terrible things happen. So if I can come out here every week or so, add another line to just yoink everything back up into place, I think this is going to be a good solution. And again, I am a big fan of trellis and support systems that you do not need to have in place at the moment of planting. Anytime I can make smaller bite-sized jobs in the garden, it's better for me because, as I've mentioned in other videos, both David and I work full-time jobs outside of the homestead and don't always have a chunk of time to do stuff with. So I'm going to stop yammering and I am going to get on with my first pass through this. Should not be a long process at all, which is good because it's warm and getting harder to breathe out here. I wanted to give you guys an update real quick on the tomatoes because that was the last video I did, which I know I'm overdue, but how this trellis system worked. As I have mentioned now a couple times in this video, it was a pretty gnarly storm just last night. And the tomatoes, for the most part, came through fairly unscathed. There are a couple, like you can actually see here, like a couple little flagging limbs that were knocked off. This one I've actually already cleaned up. And like this guy, so sad. But that's okay, actually. I'm gonna take him off. I can show you on him a little better how this system works as these tomatoes get a little taller. You can see how I've got the rope just twined around. I take off all these little suckers. There's another one. And then I just keep on twisting this around just like that. They're looking pretty good, pretty healthy. I have quite a few of the sunflowers that I seeded popping up, and oh look, some marigolds that I seeded as well. Not as many of those. I don't know where all the marigolds are. Oh, sunshine, gosh darn it. It's like almost summer or something. I think that'll do for today. I feel like it wasn't a whole lot, but like I said, I started this process a little while ago. So I'm definitely behind a little bit in keeping you guys updated on what's going on because it's spring, it's late spring and things are just kind of busy. And I talked myself out of what you guys would find interesting, but I will say this, my next video, I am kind of keen to walk you guys around and show you what this place looks like. The last time I did that was January and it does not look the same. Go figure. So yeah, holler at me if you have any questions. Please leave comments and engage with us because I don't, believe it or not, I don't always know what I'm doing. But I like answering questions and talking to people and learning and again, hopefully inspire others to try something. Even if it means some of y'all are watching this going, what in the world? are you doing? You crazy person, you. Anyway, come back again, hang out with us on the Lloydstead, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Oh, hi. Hi, did I disturb your nap? That's terrible of me. Okay.